What I want to show you is the basics of how to use the gimbal and not get overwhelmed or lost while trying to set it up and get it running. So basically the gimbal is going to come with the gimbal itself, the tripod mount, which I've already put it on the phone. So I put the tripod. The next step is to unlock the gimbal. And when you unlock, it will already turn on and get it ready for you to put the phone on. If it does stand like this, don't be nervous. That is totally normal for it to happen. So the next step is put this clamp on your phone, which comes with the gimbal. And what I've noticed people doing is they put this clamp a little bit lower than where it actually needs to go. And what this does, especially with larger phones, that it puts the phone in an imbalanced way on the gimbal, which makes it difficult to hold. To fix this, you need to make sure that you put it right in the middle of the phone. Usually if you have the MagSafe case, it can be a reference for you to put it on, and that should be the perfect spot. So let's unlock the gimbal back, and then it will put it in the position ready to mount the phone. With the Osmo Mobile 6 again, they've added this functionality where magnetically you can attach the phone with the clamp to the gimbal, and it's pretty straightforward. But if you are not sure how to put it, you will see the dot right here, and then you will see the white mark here, and all you need to do is just connect them together and that will do it. Make sure when you're putting it, you see there is the red marker here and the white pin. You just have to make sure that they align, and once you align them, don't worry, the gimbal is not going to activate. It's not going to work. It might not work, at least. And what you need to do actually, if it doesn't work, you just have to go through the application and make sure you're activated with your account and go through all the setup instructions. And also, if it does prompt you to update the firmware, just go ahead and do it. So what I will do right now, I will go through the app, which is called DJI Mimo. I'll put the link down in the description. And when I go through the app, it will detect the gimbal automatically, and I will connect the phone to the gimbal and go through whatever it prompts. And you will see exactly what I see, and you can follow through. And most likely it will be exactly the same unless your firmware is already updated. But I know at the day of this recording, they actually just released a new firmware, which gives the feature to actually see and control the gimbal with your Apple Watch. And they also added the new active tracking, which is the version 6.0, should make the tracking better. If you guys like this video, I can make another video showing exactly how I use the gimbal and give you a sample of what I've created with it. So let's launch the application. So DJI Mimo, I just launched it, and then we're gonna go to the camera icon in the middle at the bottom, and then it will show my Osmo Pocket 3, which I'm actually recording this video on. And I'm also seeing the Osmo Mobile 6, which is the gimbal that I'm trying to connect to. So we're gonna hit the connect button, and then it will ask us to pair through the Bluetooth. We'll go through that as well. And then after, it will ask us to modify the name of the gimbal. Usually it's nice to modify the name if you have, let's say, other people that are using DJI products, just to make sure that you're not losing the product and know exactly which product you're connecting with. So if you click on the view, you can see instructions and videos and things that you can learn from. So let's go back, and now we see that there's a new firmware update available. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to say install. The update is done. I'm going to click done. The first thing we're going to go is the three dots on the top left. What we need to go to is the gimbal. This is where you calibrate the gimbal and adjust everything on the gimbal to work exactly how you need it. The first thing where I want to go to is horizontal gimbal adjustment. It shows where you need to put that clamp, it tells you what not to do and what to avoid doing to make the gimbal work the best and most optimal way. Click OK. It's also going to give us the option to adjust in case if the gimbal was still crooked. Most likely you will not have to touch this option, so we're going to click done. Next is we're going to go again to the settings. If you feel like the gimbal is not working, the best thing to do is just go and calibrate the gimbal with the phone that you're actually using right now. This is mostly something that I suggest for people with heavier phone and bigger phone to do it, because the gimbal will adjust its motors and that way it's going to work better. So let's just click on the calibrate. We're going to say start. So just a heads up, when you do auto calibration, you need to make sure that the gimbal is standing on a flat surface and then do it. Otherwise, this might not work the best way. So let's just click start. And then now the gimbal is going to start moving around and do its thing to figure out how to adjust its settings to make sure that it can hold the gimbal. So the calibration is ready. So the gimbal is basically ready to be used. However, if you want to control it exactly how you want it, then you need to do some adjustments. For example, if you move the gimbal, it goes exactly where you want to go, but maybe you want to lock the tilt. The tilt is the movement of up and down of the gimbal, and for this you need to change the settings. Or let's say if you will make the pan a bit slower, as you notice, like right now when I'm trying to go from right to left, the pan is actually so fast. I want to make it more cinematic, more slow. So what we'll do is we're going to go on the three dot on the top left, we're going to go back to the gimbal settings, and you can see the follow speed, which controls the speed of how fast the gimbal reacts to your movements. We're going to go and do that to slow. And then another thing is the gimbal mode. So gimbal mode is where the gimbal has different modes that you can use. Most of the time, what you want the gimbal to do for you is to avoid the roll. And what the roll is basically when you're holding the gimbal with the phone, you don't want the phone to go left or right, rotating like this. And that's the primary goal of the gimbal. Everything else, you need to be in control. And if you want to record something that you don't want the tilt to be involved, or you want the roll to be unlocked and you need to do different style of shoot or cinematic shoot, then you go to the gimbal mode, you click on this follow, and you see here the tilt lock, the FPV, and the spin shot. Each of these modes have different functionalities, and as you can see, like the second one says tilt lock. So when we click that, it will lock the tilt. So basically we can't tilt this anymore. It will keep, so okay, you saw that it tilted, good point. What happened is that the gimbal's axes have limitations. When you tilt it, even though you lock the tilt, if you tilt too much and too fast, it will end up tilting. And that's where you need to take the gimbal, take your phone, and go out and try to practice to make sure that you understand how the gimbal functions and work with the gimbal and avoid those jitters. So the tilt is locked. Now you can see here you have the FPV mode, and the FPV mode basically just unlocks all the axes and it just kind of follows your movement of your hand. I don't really use this as much because it just doesn't give any practical use, for me at least. Mostly what I use is tilt lock or the follow. This is basically how you set up the gimbal to get started without getting overwhelmed or spending hours of your time to try to set it up. Since we have the gimbal set up and we went through the application to make sure all the settings are set, let's go through the buttons and see what each button does. The first thing you're gonna notice is the joystick, which controls the phone on your gimbal. When you use the joystick, it will move the phone to the direction that you want to. Personally, I try to never use the joystick because it's really not the smoothest. And then what happens is you end up going to a direction where the gimbal might not let you to go. When you kind of end up in a situation like this, that's where this button at the back comes handy. If you click it twice really fast, it will reposition the phone back to this original optimal location where the gimbal is not going to suffer. What I want to also show is the M button, the function where it goes through follow, pan mode, tilt lock, and all those settings. So if you click, it will rotate through all these settings, and this is what's going to make it helpful for you to not go through the settings on the app to do those adjustments, but to just click the M button and go to the settings that you're actually looking for. And the LED on top of the joystick indicates the mode that you're in, so you can see the circular icon there that's lit, which means that it's in pan follow and the tilt will be locked. So you also have two other buttons. One, the recording button, which is self-explanatory. And then you do have this button where it kind of shows two arrows circling around each other. And what this button does, two things. When you press once, it will switch the camera to the selfie mode. And when you click it twice, it will go from vertical to horizontal as following. This switch or this rotating knob has two functions. One of them is zooming function, and it only works when using the app. It doesn't work when you're using the basic app that comes with the phone. So it gives you the ability to zoom, and then if you click on it, it switches to the manual focus. And what this allows you to control the focus as you wish to give that cinematic look while recording. One last thing I want to show, two lights here, which are very important because first, the one that's at the bottom, it doesn't show less battery bars, but it shows a light. So don't be fooled with it. It's just indicator through the light on how much battery you have. And I just unboxed this gimbal, so it doesn't have enough battery. That's why it's red. And then the top button, this green that you see right there, what that means is that the gimbal is ready to work basically. Because what happens if I take this off, it will say red, which means there is no phone on it to function. But when I put it back on, it will go back to green. Another function of the M button that I want to show is, let's say you're outside, you're recording, but you don't want to take off the phone off the gimbal, but you want to turn off the gimbal to save the battery. What you can do is you can press this M button 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and then what it's going to do, it's going to actually put the gimbal in a sleep mode, and then the green light is going to blink, indicating that the gimbal is in standby mode. The motors are not going to be powered, which is going to save you battery. Now, you might ask how to turn off the gimbal. It's very simple. You have 2 options. You either take off the phone and you just wrap it back where it needs to go. Now you turned off the gimbal. So if you don't want to turn off the gimbal by folding it up, what you can do is, if you notice here, you see the power icon. If you hold the M button long enough, it will turn off the gimbal, and you notice it will lock all the axes and all the motors. And then you can wrap it or you can keep it the way you want, up to you. So now you know everything that you need to operate and function this gimbal. And if you like this video and you want to see more, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Comment if you liked it, comment if you didn't like it. Ask me questions if you have any, and I'll be happy to answer. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you, goodbye.